Narcissistic personality disorder, I'll call it NPD, is characterized with a heightened sense of self-importance, a constant need for admiration, and a lack of empathy towards others. So look, they appear confident, they appear self-assured on the surface, but beneath all of that lies a deep-rooted fear of being alone. So this stems from a fragile sense of self-worth and a deeply ingrained insecurity. They rely on other people for validation and affirmation of their own self-worth. They seek out relationships and connections as a means to validate their own existence and to maintain that inflated sense of self-importance. They need to control their environment and all of the people around them. So being alone can be really distressing for a narcissist, and it can trigger anxiety and insecurity. It drives narcissists to seek constant attention and admiration from other people, and it's really severe. So they have to surround themselves with people who will support or stroke their ego to help them keep that self-image intact. So this constant need for validation, it does provide them with temporary relief from being alone, but the need to rely on other people all of the time is unsustainable. And so that can lead to them being in a cycle of very unstable relationships and very manipulative behavior. So it also leads them just to being in very unhealthy, very codependent relationships that are toxic. I mean, they're just toxic. So deep down, the narcissists, they're terrified of facing their own insecurities and their flaws. And when they are alone, it forces them to confront their true selves. And without the validation and admiration that they so desperately seek. So they don't like that. They don't want to have to confront their true selves. So it's deeply unsettling for them, and it threatens their carefully constructed self-image, and it exposes their inner emptiness they try so hard to conceal. That's the mask that they keep on, that they show to the outside world. So they lack empathy, and they often find it, unable to connect with others on an emotional level. It makes it difficult for them to form close relationships. And it just can cause a whole lot of distress if they have to be alone. They cannot be single. Being single isn't even an option for them. That is why they're always needing sources of supply. And that's what I mean is narcissistic supply. And narcissistic supply is a form of a psychological addiction where the narcissist requires and even demands limitless special attention, admiration, importance, and validation to feed their sense of entitlement and self-centeredness. So their struggles are often, they stem from childhood. It's a result of early childhood trauma and attachment issues. So, they may not have received enough love as a child. They use people as objects, sort of like what they were lacking in their childhood, which further feeds their supply. So their caregivers may have ignored them or even, not catered to their inner child. And so that kind of left them emotionally stunted. And so that's why you'll often, look and wonder if you're speaking, if you're talking to an adult, that you may be speaking to someone who is emotionally a child. So their caregiver may have emotionally abandoned them, resulting in psychological damage that extends into childhood. Now, look, this isn't their fault. It isn't. It's their caregiver's fault. All right. But however, I will say it is their responsibility to get the therapy that they need to heal themselves and enable them to have healthy relationships with other people. Just because you are in pain does not mean you have the right to bleed on other people. So you need to get the help that you so need. So as a result, they use these people and things to provide emotional needs for them, and that's narcissistic supply. And this supply fosters to their egos, their self-worth, their confidence, their self-esteem. Look, they even use online dating websites, to form as a form of fuel if they can't get next to anybody, because they need that extra. They need the extra validation, even from strangers. A like, a match, because they can't handle being alone. They would rather, jump off a plane instead of being alone, because they always need that fuel from somebody. If they don't receive the attention, it's going to drive them insane. They'll become very desperate for attention. And if nobody is giving them the attention and love that they need, they will become depressed. They might feel like they're missing out on an emotional connection and validation that comes from being in a relationship. They're deficient, of inner resources that make them dependent on other people. They can't fulfill that within themselves. So they have to depend on other people to affirm their very impaired self-image, self-esteem, fragile ego. So they use other people as objects to provide that supply. So people aren't seen as people, human beings with feelings, because they lack empathy. And that is why the supply is so interchangeable. They can move from one person to the next without, any problem. So they never want to lose one of their objects for good. Much like a toy, when a child gets a new toy, they'll save the old one for later. So they'll just put them on a shelf until they feel like dealing with them again. Like a parasite, no matter, how much you give to them, it's never going to be enough to fill their emptiness and satisfy the hunger for the need of attention. So to cope with the fear of being alone, they use many defense mechanisms. And they engage in very manipulative behaviors like gaslighting and emotional manipulation to make sure that other people continue to provide the validation and attention that they crave. But some of these manipulations, that will drive people right out the door. So that you got to come up with some different stuff. So look, this allows them to avoid looking inward, doing the self-reflection, doing the healing work. Instead of, they focus on these outside factors and always blaming others for their own perceived shortcomings. That is the projection, where they make you responsible for things that they do. So look, in romantic relationships, narcissists cheat. They often cheat because they can't get enough attention from one partner. That's why they keep the harem. That's why a lot of them would be more comfortable in polyamorous relationships. And they may find somebody who can do that. But for people like me, that's a no. So understanding deep-rooted fear of being alone, is crucial in dealing with their behaviors. So it's important to, approach them with empathy and compassion because it does stem from childhood trauma. But it's important for you to set boundaries and protect yourself from their potential manipulative tactics. So we need to understand why they have this fear of being alone. It also provides us with valuable insight into their behaviors and motivations. And it helps us to recognize and address these fears by those of us who are affected by people with narcissistic personality disorder. And, if they're a family member or a friend, you can help them work towards the healing and the growth that they need. But they are the ones who have to do it. So if you found today's video informative, please like, subscribe, and comment on our page and stay connected.